Welcome to another episode of HeartTalk. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I'm Marion Nicole Teo, and with me, of course, is Dr. Granville D'Souza. Apologize for that little delay in the beginning because we were having some fun pressing some extra buttons that we weren't intending to do.
That's the funny thing. After 3 weeks of doing this, I thought I was an expert, and oh boy, looks like I'm an amateur again.
It's all right. Practice makes perfect. So that's what we're going to be looking at today, right? Our topic is about the soft side of success. And so, mistakes happen. We just need to find ways to bounce back and do it again.
That's right. No music, but anyway, we got 1 hour today, and you're right, Marion. Today we're doing the soft side of success. So with us today, we have Rekhi Singh, right? Rekhi Singh, and he's a really good friend of ours as well. And, he came to our resilience class last year. And although I've known him for about probably 9 or 10 years, he told an amazing story. So I had to tell, I just had to request that he share that story again. And it's a mixture of so many things, right? There's resilience in it, there's EQ in it. And of course, he's a very successful person. I wonder whether he'll share how much his company is worth. But I think I sort of gave a clue on Facebook already about, how much his company is worth. But really the feature why we are bringing him in is because it really underlines this whole thing about the soft side of success. So shall we explain what this is? Yeah,
Okay, you totally have caught me by surprise. I thought you said you were going to start out, but hey, why not? All right, so to me, the interpretation of the soft side to success is definitely the soft skills, the human relations, the building on it and the developing it, and I think being able to find that balance of both, knowing, you have your structure, you have your strategies, you get your tasks in place, you get your goals in place, right? But at the same time, you have to look at your relationships with people. Like for me, really, it's just like starting out with a family, right? You have your goals, you know what you want with your family, but the relationship is still so important.
That's right. When I think of the soft side of success, I sometimes think about, what's the hard side of success. So I think when we look at, and it doesn't have to be about leaders. Today is not about leadership per se, even though our guest is a leader, and he's the chairman of our systems, by the way, if I did not mention that just now, and a few other companies which we'll share later on. But, the hard side of success, I think I can introduce this by sharing when I first did my first leadership workshop, which was when I was 27 years old. And I almost peed in my pants, I have to tell you, because first of all, I was a young boy. I'd just like to
27, okay.
7 years old, and I was not supposed to do that class. I took over someone. And I must admit, these leaders looked at me like as though I was not fit to train them, which I think in a way I was half fit, but they made me feel like I was not fit at all. And I then was introduced to what leadership was all about. And to me, it had a bad name then. People were arrogant, they were difficult, they were challenging, they would stare, they did not like what you were doing, they'll just give you a hard time. And it was just horrible. Anyway, the outcome of it also was quite bad. But as I progressed, I met some really, really nice leaders. And it sort of underlined what we are talking about. There's this soft side of success. So what do great leaders do? And because both of us, we train emotional intelligence, we've met tons of leaders. And we've met the nice ones, we met the, those other ones, however we want to define them. And these, I wouldn't say soft leaders. Some people think that the soft side means they're soft and, they're easy to push around. So that's not what we mean. Right? So the hard side is about, say, strategy. They are more visionary. They are great at managing systems and processes. They got knowledge and great experience. And then the soft side, like what you said, is really the definition of EQ. So, for you, Marion, have you met a leader like that? Like in your, it has to be a leader or an entrepreneur or someone who's really successful, because that's the essence today, success and the soft side. Do you know someone who's like that?
I think definitely there are many leaders out there who I have met, and I feel that that's what's made them so successful, whether it is through my Rotary Club that I meet leaders or even through our businesses, but I think all of us share a similar journey, that it didn't start out this way. Of course, when you first start out as a leader or even as an entrepreneur, it's kind of touch and go. You kind of think you know what you need to do, but then it's not easy because human relations, it's not something where you can say we have to do step A, B, C and it's going to work for everyone. So you can't have a one size fits all style of dealing with different individuals. So it's definitely a learning journey. Right. So there's definitely a lot of examples. I'd like to think of myself as one of those examples too, really thinking about it because, you and I have been business owners. I did not work in the corporate world for that long. I think I only worked in that training company for about 3 years, but very quickly I set up my own business. So I started my own business in 1998. Right, and at that time, my boys were pretty young. They were like 1 year old and 3 years old. So as I said earlier, how I ran my business was very similar to how I managed the household. Right. So that's where I recognized that there was two sides to it. You're going to be a little bit tough about certain things like certain tasks and having, as you say, vision, having strategies, knowing what you want, your goals, etc. Right. And of course, systems in place too, even in a family. But then at the same time, the relationship is so important. And that really for me was a big journey to learn because, as you know, in the past, a little bit now still, I am an impatient person. I have a bit of a temper and I'm very straightforward. I'm very direct. I tend to say what I feel immediately. So that journey for me was really something that I had to learn that even with my children, I couldn't always be that way. I had to learn to manage the behaviors. Yeah. So, what we should do at the same time, Gran, is while we're talking, perhaps we can get our audience to also put in the chat group what they feel are qualities of a successful person or a successful leader. Would they agree that it's EQ skills or qualities, or do they think it's more IQ based? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so that's true. Whoever is watching this session, you may want to just share with us, who's a leader that like Marion said, and whom you really respect and why, right? And especially if there's soft skills, what are those soft skills that you really appreciate in them, right? Sometimes people do ask, how does this soft side contribute to the hard side? So of course, that sounds confusing. What do you mean by the soft side contribute?
Yeah.
So if you think of leadership, obviously they have to drive results. But how do these soft skills drive the hard skills? So let's look at some of these skills. So for example, someone who has great social skills, who's a good listener, right? Someone who is optimistic for that matter, right? We have this like Obama. I just saw this feature on Facebook where someone posted, the hopeful leader, someone who's hopeful, someone who drives this kind of feeling that, everything will be fine versus it might be fine, right? So they drive this feeling of uplifting other people, encouraging other people, motivating other people, inspiring other people. So that's just one. And I'm just going to probably mention that one. And so people might think, so where does the hard part come? So how do people or how do organizations become successful just because of that? Well, can you imagine if you had a leader who was pessimistic and said, and was not inspirational or motivational, and they are generally
they're just drivers, right? They just want to get the job done. Doesn't matter how you do it, just get it done. I don't listen to your feedback. You do it my way or the highway. My vision is the only vision that's acceptable. So I think if you become too much of a driver, you're just very, very task oriented and you're kind of going with the whip or dangling the carrot in front of the person saying, just get it done. And I just want to see results. Because if I don't get a good ROI, then it doesn't make sense for me. Right, and then you start to have a high turnover. You have to keep retraining people, etc. Right? Yeah.
That's just one quality, right? I mean, there's so many qualities.
So many, exactly.
And what about, say, consciousness? For example, a leader who is very aware, very aware of how they speak to you, so that if they overdo it or they are overbearing, they're aware about how to pull back, as opposed to just say what I want to say and don't think about how I say it and just use the words I want just to drive you. So that's just two we mentioned here, but actually there's ton of it, right?
So it's that ability to manage their emotions, adjust their behaviors, knowing that it might work with one or two people, but it may not work with others. So the ability to be a little bit chameleon-like and adjust those behaviors so that people can connect better with you, right? And so then you feel like you're the kind of man on the ground kind of boss where people can really feel that, well, yes, not only is your door always open, but then at the same time, you're able to understand me and listen to me. Yeah,
not one size fit all. because I adjust my response to you
Yeah.
based on your personality, based on your warmth, or based on your level of your introversion, extroversion, and so forth.
Mm, yeah. But Gran, it's kind of an interesting thing that when you first talked to me about let's do this topic, and I think about when I was first in the corporate world, or even as a business owner starting out, and it'd be kind of an interesting thing that sometimes people would say to me, if you're coming in as the trainer, you're coming in as the consultant to give advice to our staff, don't be too feminine, don't be too and it was quite funny how they'd say to me, you women, you are very emotional. When you talk to us, you just need to get straight to the point. Don't beat around the bush. You cannot be soft and gentle because our leaders will makan you. They'll just eat you up. And, and it was something that I used to hear. And remember, I started my business back in 98. And so that's quite a long time ago, right? And, the mindset hopefully has changed. And I do believe it has changed. People have recognized that it is important to have a balance in both. But at some point, it used to be very challenging for me. And I would think that the only way I could be successful as a woman, as a female business owner, was I had to be more aggressive. I had to be like a man. I had to hold back how I actually felt. We couldn't talk about emotions. We couldn't, really connect too much with people because then they'll say you're being a doormat. So it's interesting to see that it definitely has changed and people are recognizing the importance of the soft side.
And I guess the regulation of it, right? Because if you overdo the soft side, yeah, then you're a pushover. If you underdo the soft side, then you're heartless. So this regulation of how much of softness, and when I say softness, again, tenderness, calmness, listening ear, and all the kinds of things that we talked about. If Dave, I don't know if Dave is watching, but Dave is in Dave from KL, he shared with me one pretty amazing story. So while we're going to meet a multimillionaire soon in our room, Dave had one opportunity to meet a billionaire. And this billionaire happens to be in KL. So if he's listening here, you can always tell us some stories about it or verify what I'm saying. But, because his father happens to know this guy, so Vincent Tan, who owns all the 7-Elevens and the Berjaya Group in KL. So he managed to have a chat with Vincent Tan once because he had a company under Vincent Tan's company, who is the billionaire. And he managed to have that conversation and asked Vincent Tan, what drives you every morning to go to work and to be so ambitious to open all the 7-Elevens in Malaysia and so forth? And guess what his answer was? Which of course I did not expect. But he said to ensure that my family is happy. Yep. So I mean he's got more than enough to feed his family. Yeah. But the thing is that his focus was on family. Can you imagine?
Yeah. Because money can't buy happiness.
As long as they're happy, I'm happy. And that's coming from a billionaire, mind you, who's got tons of cash to do whatever he wants to do. Right? But
so maybe that's why the mindset. Yeah. No, but the thing is that I guess when we're first starting out, maybe it's not so easy to think about happiness of the family unless you're in a space where you can to a certain extent guarantee that success. But talking to a lot of people, young entrepreneurs or students wanting to start out businesses or people wanting to come up, and they always say that money is going to be the most important. And I think hearing that answer that you just gave, that it's about happiness and wanting to make sure that my family is happy, I think they're going to tell you that's BS because not many people will believe it. I mean, we're in a society that's so driven by material wealth, right? Yeah.
That could be the issue because we are so driven by material wealth. Then when it comes to purpose becomes secondary, right? But so talking about how purpose drives you, of course, we got Rekhi to tell us how it drove him at some point. And I guess if that's the compass and not so much the money, because money will be the outcome if you love what you do.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting to see how people think about their job or their life in terms of how that compass leads them to where they eventually go.
But when you look at this about how they think towards their life, I mean, that's really their attitude towards life, their mindset towards life. And I've heard people say, I'm not born with EQ. That's not something that I can just be because I did not grow up in an environment where people were EQ-ish. I was told, just do this and just study, and that was most important. So this is the question that I get many times, and I'm not sure whether you get the same thing. Are these actual skills that are learnable, right? I mean, we train it, so definitely it has to be learnable, Yeah. So what do you think about that?
Yeah. I must admit, when I first started teaching it way back in 2000, And I must admit it because I knew it was popular and I knew it was going to make me the money. By the way, this is 20 years ago.
Driven by money. Yeah, but again, 20 years ago, we were all at some point driven by money first. Yes.
And I must admit, even while I was training it, I was just hopeful that it would cause some change. But whenever you do a class, you don't quite know where is it going. People will smile at you and give you some good feedback, but you don't see them after 2 days, right? And that could be a challenge. But, I think where it started to really sink in was when we do coaching, right? So when you do coaching and people come to you with specific issues and they become EQ issues, and you're able to help them resolve it, and they can see how not having those issues anymore allows them to break through many of the challenges that they're presently facing. And then they come back to you and say, oh my golly, I never knew that this was troubling me for 5 to 8 years. And you then know coaching and training does help if you get specific on the problems that people face.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think many times we have this issue of, like here in Singapore, people love to go for training. They love collecting the certifications of attendance for this and that. So I think on the level or on the intellectual level, people know the definitions, like they know what it is. I know what this means. I understand what I'm supposed to, like, when I say, oh, I'm a very optimistic person, I understand what that means. But I think it's the how to. Right. And so it's been so important for us that in our training programs, it's not a lecture, but it becomes very hands-on so that they can learn techniques. And it's really about the how to, right? Yeah. How do I do this? How do I recognize whether this behavior that I have is working? And I have to not just be self-aware, but to also be aware to see how it's affecting other people. Because there are some people who are oblivious, right? They come in and they say, why is everybody in a bad mood? What happened? And they don't recognize when they're the cause of it, right? So
we act as the kind of mirror. And I think that mirror, by the way, we always need our own mirrors, right? And thanks to feedback forms, we sometimes get slapped and bashed around, which is good. I think those are good wake-up calls, which I thrive on. I mean, both of us know we've gone for courses where we've got also whacked. And I think this is useful stuff because these are learning opportunities for all of us, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Continuous learning, very important.
Yeah. So has anyone said anything about our question?
Okay, all right. So, looks like we have quite a lot of responses here. Okay. From Mark Wilson. Hi, Mark. This subject really speaks to my heart. Thank you, Gran and Marion. Thanks, Mark. Let's hear some of the other comments from everyone else. Michelle Hardy, build a loyal base of employees. Yeah, agree with that. That's so important. You build the loyalty. It's about having that trust. You need to trust them. They need to be able to trust you. Otherwise, how do we delegate work? I think as leaders, if we don't figure out how to delegate, how to balance the what to do with the compliments, the praises, the appreciation, because I think a lot of people also thrive for that.
We can ask Michelle, how does she do that? Because she owns a spa. So let's see how she does that with her staff.
Okay, that's cool. I'm sure she'll answer. Okay, then Mark, again. All right, so build trust, make sure people know you care. They're interested in what's best, that you are interested in what's best for them, not just the profits or the metrics. Yeah, agree. Profits is one thing, and it'll come in when people are happy, right? Embrace diversity from Andrea. So
that's right.
Yes,
hi, Andrea.
No prejudice, listen and improvise. That's right. What you said too.
Well, Andrea, she was the one who posted something on Obama's book, right? I just forgot the titles, so you can just remind us of that new book.
Okay, nice. Debbie. Hi, Debbie, our guest last week, takes the time to know team members as individuals. So important, having that good connection with them. Do you remember when we were in the Middle East and a lot of the leaders were talking about how they know the husbands and wives and children of their staff, and they have like 6,000 people there or more, right? And it's like, wow, that's so amazing that they take the trouble to, well, not everyone, but as many as they can, right? So I agree with that totally. Okay, another comment from Michelle Hardy. A good leader is someone who is sincere and cares for the people in the company, walks the talk, lead by example. Agreed. We have a lot more comments, yeah? Another one from Mark.
Examples. By example, by getting a lot of massages in a spa. That's right.
Understanding that a leader doesn't have to know everything, willing to listen, remain positive in challenging situations. That's from Mark. Yeah.
Very nice.
And I think at the same time, like for me, I recognize that, as I said, I have a bit of a quick temper, right? So, and I can be so direct. So when I know I'm wrong, I will apologize. I do not fear that. And I used to get told off before in one company that I was in, and they said, you should never apologize as a leader. People won't respect you. And I totally didn't agree with that. Maybe that's why I only worked with them for a few years.
You didn't apologize for that, right?
Yeah, exactly. No apologies for that one. But I mean, it's not just about the praise or the recognizing, giving them good feedback. And, I think when we're in the wrong and we're human, we're going to make some errors, being able to say you're sorry, right?
That's right.
Okay, Debbie, EQ base, caring and a great listener. Mark, humility, care, very much EQ base. Do I pronounce this as Zia or Zia Haq? Zia?
Yeah. I would think Zia Haq, right?
Zia Haq says hi. And then, yes, lots of greetings after that. All right. Okay. So that's some really good points given by our guests.
And
thank you, our audience.
I don't explicitly mentioned EQ, but everything that was mentioned is EQ. And we find that to be the case when people talk about attitude and the right behaviors and the ideal people they'd like to meet. It does seem like it encapsulates, a typical EQ model, right? The intrapersonal, the interpersonal skills and this warmth and so forth, right? Now I can see Rekhi, Satinder Singh Rekhi waiting, and so are we. We are really waiting for him to come into the room. And it is 8:23, and I did say, coming at 8:25, and he's obviously
a little bit earlier is okay. So do you want to introduce him? I mean, you guys have been friends for a long time. Yeah, I mean, he's got a wonderful resume, and I hear so many good things about him. So I'm very excited to meet Rekhi.
Right. So I think I'll admit him, and then I'll admit him in the room, and then I'll introduce.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Now we can watch him in action. And so yes, we'll admit him, and then I will do a short introduction of Rekhi Singh, Satinder Singh Rekhi.
Oh, there he is.
Good evening, Rekhi. How are you?
Hi, Granville. Hi, Marion.
Hi. So nice of you to join us this evening.
Thank you for having me on your show. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. I've always been so impressed by you. And before we even talk about that, I just want to say a little about you. So first of all, for our viewers, Satinder Singh Rekhi is the chairman and CEO of R Systems. But I do know he's got quite a few other companies. We always talk about R Systems, and there's another one, right? Is R Systems and
Granville, yeah, R Systems is the main company, but I have some others, which are, one is Computeris and then ECNet, but they're all a part of R Systems.
Okay, that's nice. And, so I met Rekhi 10 years ago, and since then we've been really good friends. And the lovely thing is, for a chairman to come for my workshops, I was thinking, oh boy, initially I felt stressed up that this big man was coming to my workshop, and then he was the nicest guy in the workshop.
Granville, I learned a lot from you, I must say.
But I mean, how do you get stressed with this kind of person in your room, So it's really nice. And so I'd like to start off this session today. Of course, the title, again, just in case, is The Soft Side of Success. And last year when you came to our resilience workshop, I've known you for 10 years and I'd never known that story at all. And when you told it, I was like, how did I not know this story? Because it's such an amazing piece of information which anyone should know. So, are you willing to share that story about what happened before you set up R Systems?
Well, I was in Sacramento, California. I had gone there to do my master's. And I was also doing a job in a software company. I had software experience. And while studying, I was working. That software company was actually going to go down. It was at the edge of falling off the cliff. I strategized with them and they came back to life and the company started doing quite well. All of this took about 3 years, a little more than 3 years. After they became successful, the hard side of success, meaning that their revenues were good, they fired me. So that is welcome to United States. And I was quite angry and I had my family there to support. And so I met a lawyer. In US a very litigious country. Everybody sues everybody everywhere.
Right.
So So this lawyer said, yeah, they have terminated you wrongfully, and I think we have a case against them, and you can probably get $1 million or 2 from them. That looked like a great deal.
Yeah.
But when I came back home and I talked to my wife, she said, this is something we cannot do because these people have done your green card, got you permanent residency here. And how can we sue and get into court with them? So I went back to the lawyer and said, I'm not going to sue them.
Wow.
I remember the look in her eyes as to what kind of a guy are you? I mean, I'm getting you a couple of $1 million for doing nothing. I just have to make a few phone calls because they've done something wrong. I said, no. And that's when I started our systems.
Wow.
So, as I say, I'm an accidental entrepreneur. And then wherever I went, I got contracts. So I seem to have a golden touch.
Right.
So then I say I'm an accidental and a lucky entrepreneur.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's wonderful. When I heard that, that's like you came for a resilience class and talk about resilience. That was the hallmark of resilience to me, when suddenly you lose your job and then you pick it up and then you turn your company into something like this, which is now worth a few $100 million. So that's enlisted on the Indian Stock Exchange, right?
Correct. So Granville, many times, some of the so-called negative events that happen in one's lives are probably the most positive ones when we look back. I can tell you I would never have started an enterprise on my own if I had not been fired.
Wow.
So that negative event, so-called negative event, turned out to be the most positive one for us, for me and my family. So I feel anytime, any news, we just need to watch, whether it's good or bad, time will tell us. And mostly it turns out to be good.
Wow.
Optimism.
Yeah, optimism. I mean, this is pure optimism coming from...
Very important. Very, very important because we all face different types of challenges, and any kind of business that you're starting up, especially if it's in a foreign country, because you're not naturally from the US, you had been there only, for the job and then to set up and all that. That's an amazing story. So I'd be curious, what's your secret to success?
I just said I'm lucky.
There must be more to it than just lucky because everybody's going to come and say, we need to meet you. We want to either hug you or we're going to hold you or we want to, I think you're being very humble. There's definitely more to it.
Marion, if you want to hug me, you're most welcome. Okay, if you want an answer, I'll tell you this. What I found help for me in my life was communication. And communication is on two frequencies, as I say. One is where you get the content, the speech, the words. But there's something above it which is very important, and that is the emotion. That comes on a different frequency, and the brain has to have an aperture which is opened up to allow that emotion to enter you. Most businessmen are not interested in listening to emotions. Get your act together. I want you to do your work. I don't want you to get angry. I don't want to bring your emotions, leave them at home. But that doesn't work in today's world. He's a complete person we get. So if you tune in onto his emotions or her emotions, I think the performance can be very good, very strong. And so that is the secret recipe, if that's what you want.
And that's an interesting...
A charismatic person, yes. The personality, a sincere, genuine personality that truly, deeply cares. I'm going to add on a little bit because I'm sensing a lot of this humility. So when I see you smile, I know that maybe is a sign of agreement. But this is what I gather from the conversations and when Granville has spoken about you and shared. So I think these are the qualities that you can't fake it. It comes from within. If you're talking about being driven from an emotion, firstly, you have to allow the heart to love. You have to allow the heart to care, right? And whether it's for yourself or your family, and then you translate it out into the people around you in your business, your associates, your customers, to everyone, yeah?
Absolutely. And I'll share another secret with you. Maybe you're going to ask me some question. Go ahead, Granville.
You carry on because it's your show as well.
Yeah.
Because Marion touched my heart, with all the good things she said.
He's good at that. Sometimes I have to look up.
So, when I look back at my life, I can tell you rightly said, when I was in the United States 20 years ago, They had not seen an Indian and a man wearing a turban. And I would be standing at the bus stop, and when these teenage girls and teenage boys would go in their pickup, they would make fun of me. And I was fine. And today, when I look back, actually, I'm in a sense of awe as to how did this all happen. Mm. And awe is a strong, very strong emotion. Yeah. I call it the mother of all emotions.
Yeah, we'd like to ask you more about this awe, because, I mean, this is something I think I heard you talk about at some stage, but, we never expanded on it. So, tell us how how did this start, this whole awe thing, and who are you in awe of, or what are you in awe of, and what does awe mean to you in your business life, in your personal life?
Yeah, I just have to say I'm scratching my head now, because any time when I see like something cute as "oh," that's the typical girl sound we make, right? So I know AWE. So yeah, please share more. And I'm really curious to understand what is that? What is it? Yeah.
Awe is an emotion, of overwhelming sense of a feeling that you get when you're in the presence of something vast, something great, something greater than yourself. It shifts the attention from yourself to something larger than you. And you realize in a very positive manner that you're a very tiny part of something so big and so large. Mm. So when I look back at how I got into this business, I believe that there has to be something greater than me which helped out. It just couldn't have been me. Mm. So that brings out awe. I can talk more about awe if you want.
Yeah. So if we can expand on this a little bit, when you say something greater than you, are you referring to your religion? Are you looking at a spiritual source? Or tell us a little bit more.
Sure. Awe is generally felt in places of worship. Right. It is also felt in nature. When you see stunning sunsets, stunning sunrises, the ocean, and people have also felt awe when they see some paintings or music. And pregnant women have also felt awe at the time of delivery. It's a very grueling experience, but many women have reported that it was an awe experience. And some men who accompany those women in that room, the delivery room, have also reported awe.
Right. That's if they don't faint, right? Yeah.
You mean if the woman hasn't scratched his eyes out or anything like that?
Pulled it out, yes.
Yeah. Well, so it kind of works with the sound that I make, Gran, because when I go, oh, it's usually for something that's the first start, right? No, but I understand where that's coming from, but it is much deeper. It's a lot, because initially I looked at the word awe and I thought, it's like curiosity, but it's definitely not just about curiosity. It's a deep, deep sense of, there's the satisfaction that comes with it. There's this gratitude that comes with it. It seems to be a lot more in the way that you have defined it. Interesting.
So multiple emotions, it's more than happiness. There's a little bit of a chilling fear also, because you will get goosebumps. And then, of course, dopamine is released. Oxytocin is released, the neurotransmitter or the hormone of love. And that's when you feel interconnected. And you get interconnected with everybody. So when you walk into the office, people feel a sense of interconnection with you.
I'm sure. I guess when you are definitely inspired, and the way you would be, just your being will be quite different as opposed to someone who's not inspired. Now, my question is, if supposing I needed to learn awe, can you learn awe, or is this something that you get awe?
You could. You see, Granville, today what's happened is that the outside world comes inside us through the cell phone and laptops. We were at one time sitting under a tree. We don't do that anymore. So walking in nature is an awe walk, where you can see that, look, this earth has actually personally been made for me. Mars does not have trees, does not have flowers, does not have water, but I have it all here. So everything that you see around you in a nature walk, if you can tell yourself, this is all created for me personally, that is the start of a small dose of awe. And when you get a small dose of awe, the brain structures actually change. The brain aperture opens up. And then you're able to take risks. Otherwise, you take only safe decisions. If you've had
Yeah.
all doses, then you can take a risky decision, which is needed when you have a company and business.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of like happiness. It's like the happy hormones that you are filling yourself up with, together with the gratitude. I mean, I think that's such a beautiful thing to always remind people, and that's why, like for me, one of the causes has always been about saving the earth, saving the animals. We do a lot of these kind of causes, and it's just going to get people to recognize that there's something bigger than just ourselves. And Grant and I were talking about that before this, that success isn't just about making money. Yes, money is important. None of us can say that money isn't important. But there will be at some point in our life where we recognize that there's so much more to living than just making money, which I think somehow a lot of people have forgotten.
Yes, we live in an awe-deprived world.
Awe-deprived world.
It's totally deprived now. And I can tell you another thing. When your phones or your laptops don't work, the engineer will tell you switch it off and switch it on. What happens is that the old settings come back into the device. Similarly, the human mind, the human body needs to pause, switch off, and then reset itself. The emotion of awe does that. So if you are not able to solve a problem, an issue which is troubling you, if you go for a nature walk and feel that your feet are kissing this earth and enjoy the nature, that actually tends to switch you off. And when you come back to work, you'll find your settings have been restored and new settings have also come in. So you'll solve the issues better.
The human mind sometimes works in simple steps. So if I can just try and get the first two steps, supposing now, like we're in Singapore, right? And sometimes people feel, Singapore is just full of buildings, but yet they are obviously, like, I know where you stay. You stay across a pretty nice ocean, right? Right. So it's easy for some people, right? This nice seaside on the side and so forth. But okay, let's put it this way. If maybe they get their feet on the beach, what is a starting point to acquiring or achieving the first steps of awe?
The first step of awe is that one has to transcend one's own self, because one is, if I'm all in myself, that I am the biggest force, I'm the center of this universe, awe will not come. And when I look at, and the stimuli doesn't have to be a very big size like an ocean. Even an ant can actually inspire you and trigger awe. If you figure out that, look, what a little thing has been made. I cannot make an ant. And it is made with such fine precision. So a feeling that there is something bigger than you which is at work. You can call it God, you can call it nature, you can call it universe, whatever term you give it, but something bigger than me.
Right.
And that is supporting me. Awe will come.
I think it's the ability to look for the beauty in everything and every experience. You don't need to go to a beach. I mean, Singapore doesn't have the big mountains and beautiful beaches, but yet, I mean, like, why do I go and walk in the park every day? Because every day I see something different that just makes me be grateful for living on this earth, that there's this beauty in nature, the patterns of the leaves, etc. Right? And I think, Grant, it's so cute when you said about the steps. I think sometimes we think too much. When we think too much and we get into our here, we don't allow ourselves to connect here, and we don't allow our bodies to just be. We always want to do, but we have to learn to just be. And I think mindfulness is something that we've always talked about as a practice. It helps people get out of this space here.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I think Hades Singapore, sometimes, if you look at people who need steps, I think it may help them to see, okay, like they could be looking at this as a concept and thinking, really, what's awe? And so sometimes people need a step, but someone like Marion, I think she can go there quite fast because you are quite bodily in that sense, right? You get sensations quite easily, whereas someone like me needs a step, right? A step or a second.
And that step is a nature walk, and looking at things with newer eyes.
Yeah.
While the ocean may be wonderful, and I have the ocean view, but truly, you get habituated to it. And every day when you see it, you have to see it with newer eyes. Otherwise, it seems the same.
Nice.
So,
you're too tough on yourself, Grant.
Sorry. And Singapore has a lot of greenery. Singapore is totally green. You can look at trees
Yeah.
everywhere.
Agree with that. Yeah. Now, I just said, Gran, you're too tough on yourself. You always say that you're very heady, but you're definitely very sensy. I mean, you two also go and know how to enjoy nature. And I think we all need the time away from the office, getting away from the computers. You know, I mean, it's like something that my sons used to, when they were younger, they used to be so upset with me when I say, you know, dinner time, no handphones, no books, no television. Oh, but mom, our friends' parents allow it. I'm like, no, we're just going to enjoy the presence of each other. You know, and it's just, it starts somewhere by just learning to let go of technology. And it's difficult with the younger generation because
Granville, what you could do is you go for a nature walk, but don't take your cell phone with you.
I don't. Actually, I don't. I never. I do a lot, and I never take the.
A lot of walking.
That is the first step.
Yeah. You know, one thing, I mean, it looks like time really flies, 8:42, but we better ask Rekhi as much as. There's one more thing. Well, a few more things, but let's ask one thing. You set up 2 institutes, right? One in Sacramento and one in India. Would you like to tell us a bit more about this? Because, I mean, you are one CEO who does not just look at your profits, and even though your profits are growing like crazy, but your focus seems to be, I don't know. I mean, when I go to your office, I see nothing on your table. It's not like you're doing nothing. You're on the phone. But yet, there are all these activities in your life. So tell us about these 2 institutes for a start.
Let me answer your first question. And that is, I'll tell you what your question was. You seem to have a clean table, and you also said probably that you seem to have plentiful time.
Right.
One of the things that happens when you experience doses of awe, plentiful time is available to you. It just happens. When you're living in your own self, in your own ego self, you're running from A to B to Z and going here and there. And when you start doing these little things, which I call small doses of awe, time becomes plentiful because your work gets done faster and smarter.
Wow, that's a really, really good tip, because I think that's what I'm not doing.
Because the solution is always around you. What happens is the brain does not allow a risky thought to come inside. It only allows a safe thought to come inside. And many solutions require a little bit unsafe way of working. So that's why we call the brain aperture opens up, and it allows those thoughts to come in, which the brain was rejecting earlier. So your work gets done faster, quicker.
Nice tip. What about those 2 institutes? You'd like to share with us a little bit more?
One is in India, where I had graduated my engineering from. So I went back to them and said, I'd like to set up a center of excellence for studying and researching science of happiness. And It's an engineering college, and they welcomed the idea. So we have a center there which teaches science of happiness to engineers. The aim being, happy engineers will be better engineers.
I mean, that's interesting. Engineers and happiness, right? We almost think like the engineers. By the way, I'm not saying they're not happy, just in case engineers are listening in. Engineers are very heady. That's why engineers are very heady. Yeah. If you're looking at happiness, is a very hearty thing. And so your decision to bring in happiness into an engineering institute is an amazing step.
Yeah.
Because then they innovate better, they do customer service better, and they spread happiness in the organization. In my company, I immediately found out some are happy people, some are not happy people. Even if the unhappy person, the person is high intelligence, but if he's unhappy, he makes the customer unhappy. So it is important. Happiness is important. So probably, and it's a choice we have. So studying it in that engineering college is what's being done. Then I had done my master's in Sacramento. So that institute also, we sponsored study in science of happiness and well-being. And that is just taking off.
Wow. Really, really
I think that's such a great tip for a lot of our business owners and leaders and managers who are in our audience. You know, I think that's something that they can definitely translate back into their own organization with their staff, with their customers. That it doesn't have to be engineers, but happy people are successful because they're problem solvers. You know, they're able to. They're going to do their job to the best of their ability. So really, it's about bringing out the best in them, but ensuring that they're happy. So very EQ-ish, definitely, in terms of the way we connect with them, understand them, get in touch with their emotions.
Marion, I'm just wondering if there could be questions for Rekhi on the phone, just in case, because it's almost like 8:50 and I got just one more question for Rekhi. These
Sure,
people are
no problem. You ask your question and I'll look. Sorry if I'm looking away. Yes.
So Rekhi, now that we've got like, oh boy, four questions. I wish we put like 1.5 hours to this. But so like, okay, we won't ask you about your age, but in terms of you being at the town,
Just put my eyes very big at you. That's all I can say.
that's why I said we won't ask you for your age. But in terms of leadership, what would the next, knowing that COVID has happened, right, and we won't know how long this is going to last, what is it looking like for you and say the coming 6 months and the organization?
You see, if I look at COVID, and you know quite well, the biggest problem today that people are facing with the COVID situation is the uncertainty. Everybody wants to know what is on the other side of the hill. The mind wants to know what is in store for me tomorrow.
Yeah.
But life is uncertain. And the only thing certain about life is its uncertainty. So, because the uncertainty is part of life. If actually everything was laid out and we knew what's going to happen the next moment and so on, life will become very boring. Of course, this is a little more uncertain uncertainty we are facing, but truly we have to probably learn to embrace uncertainty. In business also, we go through uncertain times, it, we go up and down, and that's the way life is. So accepting, tolerating, and embracing uncertainty is the thing today, I believe. Trying to go into the future and finding stories as to when vaccine will come, they are all wonderful, but just accept it. And my life started with a negative instance when I was fired. So I believe that everything turns out to be quite good. So probably there will be an awe experience after this coronavirus.
Right, you're right. So just being present, being present with the circumstances we are in and finding some awe. And I mean, that's like really talk about serendipity, right? Serendipity is about fortuitous bouts of good luck. And so looking at the circumstances you're in and seeing in what way is that a blessing, right?
Exactly.
Correct.
Yeah.
And awe also follows a traumatic event. Many people have had a traumatic event. When they bounce back, they feel awe.
Yeah.
I know, Marion, you are going to start feeling more awe because you have felt it, you have not recognized it.
Oh, no, I definitely know what you're talking about. I have gone through crap and come out, everything that I've gone through. I mean, I'm very grateful that I've always had this opportunity to still be able to bounce back from every challenge that has come in my life. I have these greatest blessings of having my son. So I definitely know what awe is. Well, I like making the sound too. Aw, because it drives Granville crazy.
Actually, when I look at Granville, I feel a sense of awe.
Aww.
No, you don't make the sound right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But I think one of the things that a lot of us also have to recognize is it's not easy sometimes to put the ego aside and recognize that we can't control everything. Everything happens for a reason. And when we can change that mindset, we have that shift in our attitude that everything is a blessing, everything is a gift. And just to be able to wake up in the morning, take that deep breath and say, thank you for this day, and I'm just going to be the best that I can be today. And that's all anyone can ask for.
Yeah.
Very good thoughts. Wonderful, Marion. I'm impressed.
Yes.
I am in sense of awe talking to both of you.
Likewise.
Likewise.
Are there any... So usually what we do is
I've lost touch with all there's so many statements and a lot of positive things, but it's too many to go through now. So yeah.
We can do that now, but we'll do them and we'll talk about it later at some point.
Yeah.
So are there any parting words, Rekhi? Because usually we have like 7 hours to wrap up the show after our guest leaves. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, I want to thank you for having me on the show. For me, it is a very enjoyable and wonderful experience. I wish you all the success.
Thank you so much. Just like Oprah shows, we bring our guests in 2 or 3 times. I think you look like one of those.
Yes. Thank you, Rekhi. This time was definitely not enough. I'd love to hear so much more. You've been an amazing guest. You've shared so much in this short time. And I just love the positive energy that I'm getting from here. I am so in awe too.
Thank you, Marion,
wishing
and thank you, Granville.
Yeah, thank
You're most
you,
welcome.
Rekhi.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much for being with us, and we
Yeah.
hope to be in our show.
Yeah. So
Thank
wishing
you.
you a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. May I leave now?
Yeah, you
Yes.
can.
Okay.
It's so cute.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
It's like, no, we're going to leave you here, hold you hostage. All right. Good night. Good evening. Yeah.
Good day.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Rekhi.
Bye-bye.
So,
So let me just try to get to some of them. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Okay, so we've got John Chua. So important to engage and understand our team members, treat them like your families. Tahir is watching from Bangladesh. Very nice.
oh, that's nice. Don't try
Yeah.
nice, calming
Yes.
personality as well.
Okay.
And
Be
nice
authentic, be vulnerable, be yourself. No one is perfect. Andrea is here thinking about the same thing,
Golden
about
Pope.
being authentic. Yes.
Right. Oh, Golden Pope.
Meng Kiang, embrace making every day better for oneself and influencing others. Yeah. Debbie is asking Rekhi, can she have some of your luck? Okay. Mark, negative events. Yes, make them into positive movements. Yes, amazing. Sume
Right.
says hi.
Nice.
Right, so
you
there's lots of nice I think a lot of them are talking about awe, which is something they seem to really enjoy.
That's
Yeah.
nice.
Lots of hearts, lots of loves. Okay,
That's-
Andrew from Indonesia is here.
Right. Hi, Andrea, our Indonesian partner.
Yes, Pat E.
Ah,
Sukunti from Cambodia.
oh, that's
Long
nice.
time.
By the way, I love her voice.
Okay.
Don't tell her that. She's got such a cute voice.
Okay, so yeah, lots of Cindy's here. Ian has joined us also. A lot of them. So thank you so much, Morali, also from the US. Thank you. So some very good comments there, which we can answer later. So, Gran, yes, thank you everyone so much for all your comments and your likes. We definitely will, want to go through every of those statements and try to answer some of them. Yeah.
So that's what was one thing that you took away from that, because when we talked to Rekhi, we did not ask him, okay, what's this all about, right? We just said, okay, this is awesome, so bring it up and let's explore it. I mean, knowing him, he's a pretty spiritual guy, so I knew it was going to be very relevant.
Yes.
What do you think of it? What do you think of his thoughts on all?
Well, I mean, that's something that we talk about all the time, and for me, it's always been something very important that there's don't look down on anything thinking it's too small or it's too little or expecting something big to happen or something dramatic, but to be able to appreciate the beauty in every little thing. I mean, everything that I've gone through, my mind has really been wired into now just looking for all the positives and just trying to do the best that we can do. So I like this concept of awe. I mean, the emotion, the way he's explained it and connecting it back to your resilience, your ability to problem solve, but I think for me, the one statement that I really like was this: happy people. I know you joked about the engineers, but happy people are successful. I mean, we've talked about this so many times in our happiness programs, in our EQ programs, in our resilience programs, but to hear it from a CEO, I think that's so important that, you live by these words of happy people are successful people. Yeah.
And I think it's so important to hear it from not just a CEO, but a very, very successful CEO, worth a few hundred million. And the reason why I say that is because people always think that these very successful people must have been either very rich in the first place, right? Or they had, some big amount of money that was given to them, or they are
born with the silver spoon in their mouth.
or some luck was thrown from the sky. No, but he started from scratch, and it looks like he had the right formula in terms of the attitude. And by the way, just to share with you this part, when he first came for a training, or when he attends training, nobody knows who he is. And right till at the end of the 2 days, nobody knows who he is. He never talks about his job, who he is. And I have to sometimes at the end and say, hey, Rekhi, introduce yourself. And then he quite meekly shares who he is. And they look at, so what's our systems? So that's who he's like. He's like that with everyone. That level of humility and selflessness it goes a long way, and it's just very magnetic.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's such a lovely thought, that knowing that, yes, there are a lot of people out there who maybe don't put EQ as a priority, but yet at the same time, between you and I, we do know a lot of very successful leaders like Rekhi who are very humble, very unassuming. They're very charismatic in their own way, and you just want to sit down and listen to them, and it's that wonderful thought that that there are people out there. And so it gives us more hope. It gives us more, especially in times like this, where when we see things going not so well in the world, when we see certain types of leadership in organizations, in countries, that, you kind of scratch your head and you wonder, why do they make these decisions and why do they do these things? But yet at the same time, there's a big percentage of very, very humble, good people who are also going to make the world a better place. And so we have to keep hope, and each of us have to just do our best.
Yeah.
Don't you agree?
I certainly agree. I'm always reminded of this, like, whenever we, at least you probably have the same experiences. Quite frequently when we train bigger classes, there's always be like the CEO or the chairman or the, or the founder that comes in front to give a kind of introductory speech or a launch of a new program. And, the experiences you get sometimes when they all stand up and they carry on clapping and they don't want to stop, right? And you just wonder what makes them do that. And then of course there are others who stand up and they're like waiting to sit down and give one or two claps and they don't even look at the front. And then you wonder, what's that person really like in front of their staff and how do they lead? So there's obviously a big difference when your people love you and they think highly of you and they respect you, and wherever you are, they just give you that kind of adulation and respect. And so it makes a big difference, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, the day-to-day behaviors and attitudes that a successful person has towards other people, which makes a huge difference in other people's motivation.
Exactly. And these kind of behaviors, you can't fake it. It comes from so deep within them, the sincere person, they're so authentic that they can't fake it. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, we've got about a minute or two left. So our lovely audience, listeners, thank you so much for being with us, and, with all the comments and all the likes and all that. Again, today was about the soft side of success. So I really hope that you too have found something interesting, something that really touched your heart in terms of how you want to, carry on with tomorrow and the day after and the day after, because there's so much hope for humanity. Yeah?
That's right. And I hear
next week.
And I hear next week you are not so available, eh?
I'm taking a break next week. So you're on your own, dear Granville. I'm sure you'll have lots of different guests. You can have a party now.
Whoever's listening in, please tell your friends to join in as well, because I'm going to be alone. And
No, you won't be alone. I'm sure some of them will come on live with you. You'll get some. Just the last Thursday of every month will be one of those issues. I have my community service that calls me. My community service.
Right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us tonight, and we hope you enjoyed this session together with Rekhi, Satinder Singh Rekhi, who is our great friend, and we look forward to doing next week's session. Haven't decided on the topic.
What's new? And who your guest is yet. Okay, maybe I'll be the guest. I'll come as a different person.
I'll ask the guests before I announce it.
Okay. Anyway, yes, it's already 9:00. So thank you again, everyone. Stay safe, take care. And Gran will see you next week at the next HeartTalk session.
That's right.
Yeah.
I look everyone, call your friends in, right? Pack the room. Okay.
Okay. Bye. Bye, everyone. Good night.
Night.